1 in every 4 women will experience domestic violence in her lifetime, and on average, 3 women are killed by a current or former partner each day. These are statistics reported nationally. Connecticut averages 14 domestic violence homicides per year and has for the past decade. I'm Nathan O'Leary for Comcast Newsmakers at the Kent McCrae Television Studio at the University of Hartford, and Karen Jarmoc, Executive Director of the Connecticut Coalition Against Domestic Violence, joins me to discuss that program. Karen, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me.
These statistics are alarming, and
They
these
are
are actually just what's reported. There could be more out there. What are the most pressing circumstances surrounding domestic violence?
Obviously, lethality is of great concern to our organization and statewide. You mentioned about the 14 homicides annually. And again, there's probably around 125 near deaths in Connecticut as a result of domestic violence. And so it's that whole piece around informing individuals around what are those lethality factors, risk factors associated when there's a breakup, when there's a court case, when there's a child custody issue. Those are very tragic circumstances that can also lead to lethality, and those are the things that we try to inform victims about.
In domestic violence, to be clear, it's not just a social problem, it's a crime, as is also the threat of violence alone. How do you make people aware of their rights and resources?
So there's two ways. As a statewide organization, we have a website, www.ctcadv.org. It has resources, information about laws, where your most local domestic violence agency exists, and also the statewide hotline number, 888-774-2900, is the quickest and easiest way to access information, resources, and help, whether that's a critical time or if you're just wanting information.
And people on the front lines often are the people who are friends, co-workers, people who know the people who may be involved in domestic violence. What are the warning signs that some of these people can look for?
So domestic violence is about power and control, right? It's about someone trying to have power or control over another. So if they're trying to emotionally be abusive, physically, the threat of violence, financially abusive, those are some of the warning signs, trying to keep track of your comings and goings, who you're talking to, what you're wearing, for example.
Now, if someone is living in an unsafe situation, what should they do?
The quickest and best way to help someone who's at risk is the statewide hotline, the 888-774-2900. We find that in the majority of those lethal circumstances, victims didn't know where to reach out for help, and that's why we try to convey that information. You'll reach a certified domestic violence counselor 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
How has the Violence Against Women Act changed things when it comes to the resources you can offer and what victims can expect?
VOW is very important. It provides a very strong funding stream so that we can allow for 18 shelters in the state of Connecticut, hotline services, advocates in the criminal court, and also in some of our civil courts. So it's an important funding stream, and it's also a commitment by our federal government to helping prevent violence against women.
What were your legislative priorities this past year, and what are they going forward?
The big wins have been, for the first time, a domestic violence hotline for Spanish-speaking victims dedicated just for that. There's a task force that I'll be co-chairing this summer into the fall around the service of restraining orders. And then obviously we're going to be looking at firearms and what are those circumstances where lethality is at its greatest risk, and how might we ensure that victims where there's firearms accessible among perpetrators, keep them safe.
And if people want to get involved with your effort, how do they do that?
I would say go to our website, find out where your most local program is, reach out and offer to help.
And look for those warning signs and help somebody if they're in trouble.
Absolutely.
All right, Karen Jarmoc, thank you very much for joining us, Executive Director, Connecticut Coalition Against Domestic Violence.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for joining Comcast Newsmakers. I'm Nathan O'Leary.